it was amazing because there was a little bit of a trash talk going on about my Bible class, how that essentially my Bible class would just be me reading these 3 chapters slowly. I'm going to show that person up, though. I'm going to read them quickly 3 times. And Lord spake to Moses and Aaron, saying, no. But it is amazing in the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis through Deuteronomy, we call them the Pentateuch, of course, how many times, and the Lord said, that should impress something upon us, that it was not from the mind of men that these commandments, these directions, whether it was a civil situation, whether it was a religious situation, from the building of the ark all the way to the building of the Ark of the Covenant, everything was done as God said. So first of all, God exists. These things did not come from the mind of men. They came from the mind. That is the mind of God. And he continues to talk to man. He talked to Adam in the garden. He talked to Noah, to Abraham, and now he's talking to Moses. And the Lord is giving specific directions to Moses and to the people. This is how I want my nation to be set up. And so he continues with the children of Levi and the 3 families of the children of Levi, Kohath, Gershon, and Merari, and what he expects of them in their duties as it relates to moving the tabernacle. They couldn't just move it however they wanted. They had specific duties that they were responsible for, and whoever the high priest was the superintendent, the supervisor. Does this family have everything that God told them to have? Does this family, do they have the necessary equipment that God has given to them so that they could fulfill all of their duties? And so not only back in Exodus, did God say, okay, this is what I want you to make the tabernacle out of. This is how I want you to build this fabric structure. Then he gives instructions of how to tear it down. That is, in our modern scenario, we would say strike the set, by the way. How are they going to strike the set? He gave specific instructions. And who was to do what in the dismantling of, taking down the tabernacle, and then reassembling it as the children of Israel moved through the wilderness. And so each family was to have a certain and specific part of that. Beginning with verse 4, Numbers 4. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. And so the most holy things were all of the instruments, everything from the Ark of the Covenant itself to all of the altars, the tables, the plates and bowls, the tongs, the hooks, all of those things had to be cleaned, picked up, packed up, because he gave specific instructions as to the cloths that were to be covered and wrapped in and things of that nature. And then the sons of Kohath, everything that they packed up and moved, they were to move them by way of poles. And so they were to pick these things up and put them on their shoulders and move them as men. So that is what was given to the sons of Kohath. Go down to verse 15 of Numbers 4. And when Aaron and his sons have made an end of the covering of the sanctuary and all the vessels of the sanctuary, as the camp is to set forward, After that, the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it, but they shall not touch an holy thing lest they die. These things are the burdens of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation. So Aaron and his family, so in other words, the high priest and the high priest's immediate family, were to pack everything up. They were to cover everything, including the Ark of the Covenant. They were to put poles in all of the rings so that the sons of Kohath, all they had to do was come and pick it up. And so that was the service of the sons of Kohath. Were they given oxen? Were they given wagons? Were they told to drag these things on the poles on the ground? No. There were going to be 4 men at least picking up these things by poles so that they did not touch the ground. The poles weren't to touch the ground as they were being moved. But also notice that even though the sons of Kohath were picking these things up by the poles, they were not to touch those things that were packed. So they're inches away from the Ark of the Covenant. They're inches away from the altars and the things that were packed, but they were not to touch them. And so these instructions were given to this particular family. It was a tough thing being a member of the family Kohath, was it not? Would you like to be a family member of Kohath? Especially a man in the family of Kohath? That was a tough assignment. But they were able to carry it out. They were given the instructions. They're able to carry it out. Not impossible. Let's go to chapter 7. We'll kind of skip ahead just a little bit, just to make a point here. The family of Kohath was given nothing, and they transported all of the small things of the tabernacle. Again, all of the instruments. Gershon, the family of Gershon, were to carry all of the fabric of the tabernacle. That was the tabernacle itself, and also remember there was a fabric wall all around the entire structure, which created the courthouse and, of course, the big curtain, the door. It's called a door. It's a big flap is what it was. To enter into that initial courtyard rather. I'll get it right in a second. And so here you have this huge curtain wall, and so the family of Gershon was to transport all of that heavy fabric. Well, what was given to them? Verse 7 of chapter 7. 2 wagons and 4 oxen he gave to the sons of Gershon according to their service. So they had 2 wagons that they were to put all of those curtain and fabric on. Then in verse 8 we see the sons of Merari, the family of Merari, they were given 4 wagons. 4 wagons and 8 oxen he gave to the sons of Merari according to their service, under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron, the priest. And so 4 wagons were given to them. They were transporting all of the poles, all of the lumber for the tabernacle. And there was a lot of lumber because however long, I don't recall now what the distance was, but every 8 feet, here's a tall pole. Well, those poles then had to be loaded up and put on wagons. And so Merari, they received 4 wagons for their service and 8 oxen. So wagons and oxen were part of transporting the tabernacle itself, was it not? It was. But was the Ark of the Covenant to be transported by oxen and wagon? No. As a matter of fact, the sons of Kohath were to carry the Ark of the Covenant after it was covered by Aaron or the house of Aaron, and then they were to pick it up by poles only and transport the Ark of the Covenant that way. That was the only authorized way to transport the Ark of the Covenant. If it was transported in any other manner, then that would have been sinful. Because here's a command of God. This is how you transport it. And transporting any other way would be outside of the authority of God. And of course, obviously we know that that was done and a man lost his life because of that situation. So there are specific duties given to specific family members, and it mattered whose family you are a part of. We just mentioned it mattered if you are a man in the family of Kohath. That matters. Was that a serious business? Transporting the Ark of the Covenant, serious business, isn't it? It certainly is. And so if you were a member of the family of Kohath, you felt the gravity of that situation. And if you've ever moved, anybody in here ever moved before? Anybody? I maybe put my hand down. I've never moved a single time. No, all of my moves were married with large families. That's an inside joke. You don't get that? That's all right. We've moved multiple times. Let's just put it that way. And so we know how difficult it is, challenging moves are, even today with our horseless carriages and such. That's still a difficult process, is it not? And think about, in the ancient times, moving all these heavy things, folding things up, and I don't know. That was a different time, and definitely challenging. Not impossible, though, but challenging. And so God gives us difficult and challenging situations, definitely. Yes, sir.
I can imagine they were probably working in shifts, 'cause that's a lot of walking.
Yeah, it is a lot of walking, absolutely. And, don't you think that the families of Kohath, Gershon, and Merari were glad that their camps were right there at the tabernacle itself as well, so that they're right there, right there, because there are, and he gives the numbers, like the sons of Kohath, 2,000 or so. Well, let's say you're son number 2,000. You're not very close to the tabernacle, are you? You're a little distance away from the tabernacle. At least you're closer than the other tribes. But yeah, that's a lot of walking. And then you load everything up, and then wherever that pillar goes, you have to walk there too. And so yeah, you're right. That's a lot. That's a lot of walking. No, do you imagine there are too many overweight folks in the camp? Imagine there are overweight folks in the camp? Probably not. Probably not. All right. And then in chapter 5, we see that there are various situations with dealing with leprosy. In verses 1 through 4, you command the children that they put out of the camp every leper, male and female. You to do that, and the children of Israel did that. No doubt that was a struggle for them that had never been done before in the history of mankind. Quarantine situation had never been practiced. And outside of the camp of Israel, it was not practiced. It was just not a common practice. And so, no doubt, this was a challenging command for the children of Israel. But they did it. And we are grateful for that. Then we have verses 6 through 10. We have the situation of confessing sins, whatever trespass that is. Speak to the children of Israel, verse 6. When a man or woman commit any sin that men commit to do a trespass against the Lord, and that person be guilty, then they shall confess their sin which they have done, and he shall recompense his trespass with the principal thereof, and add unto the fifth part thereof, and give it to him against whom he hath trespassed. And so, if there was a sin committed, not only do you repay that sin, but then you add 20% to it, and you repay that sin, and you add some interest, if you will, to whatever. If you took advantage of your brother or sister, that you repay them, and you confess that. In other words, if you sin and then you realize that, then the one who is in the wrong says, hey, look, I did that. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. That was definitely against, and is still against, the idea of man today. Why, today, if we do something wrong, we want to do everything in our power to hide that from everybody else. Don't we? Every single person in this room, every single one, guilty. We know, you know it, I know it. And guess what? In the ancient times, same thing, because man does not change. We all have that situation. And yet, what does God say? What does he want us to do? Look, I did something wrong. Let me make it right. Let me change this situation. That is from Adam until the Lord returns. That is a principle that we as human beings who want to do what God has asked us to do, that's a principle we abide by. That we confess our sins and say, look, you know, I did something I shouldn't have done. Let me make it right. And that is a part of that self-evaluation. And when I evaluate the actions of my life and the attitudes that I have in life, oh, I probably shouldn't have thought that, or I should not have done that, or should not have said that. Or maybe I said that, but I didn't say it in the right way. Let me make sure that I communicated that in the right way. Have you ever had to do that? Oh, I said that, but I didn't say it quite the way I wanted to. Maybe there wasn't quite enough love in that situation. And, you know, are we to tell the truth? Are we to tell the truth? We are to be truth tellers, absolutely, without question. But can you tell the truth in an evil way? With an evil attitude behind it? Yeah, you can. So when we tell the truth, that needs to be the truth in love. And so that's said a totally different way. And so we need to check our attitude and make sure that that is correct as well. So we need to confess our sins. And then, of course, God wants us to maintain purity. Beginning with verse 11, really verse 12. You know, if a man's wife goes and commits adultery. Now, it's interesting under this certain circumstance, there's a trial situation. If there's no, a man believes that his wife has committed adultery, and so what does he do? And they say, oh, well, have her drink this bitter water, and then if she's guilty. Well, obviously, there was a miraculous situation there. That doesn't happen today, okay? There's no bitter water for test to take. There in verse 17, the priest shall take holy water in an earthen vessel, and of the dust that's of the floor of the tabernacle. Do we have dust of the floor of the tabernacle today? No, you know, and drink dirt, basically. No, that's not going to happen. But those who are impure are going to be judged by God even today. Now, there might be a delay in that particular judgment. If those things are not repented of, confessed and repented of, there might be judgment there. There's a delay in that, but it's certain nonetheless. It is certain. All right, chapter 7, dealing with the Nazirite vow. And we've already discussed how important it is when you make a vow that you keep that vow. When you make a promise to God, to someone else, or yourself, that you must follow through with that promise or that vow. And this is a specific kind of vow. This is between a person and God, and for whatever purpose this individual might offer or give this vow. And so the Lord says, verse 2, chapter 6, you tell the children of Israel, when either a man or a woman shall separate themselves a vow of a Nazirite, to separate themselves unto the Lord. He, verse 3, shall separate himself from wine, strong drink, shall drink no vinegar of wine, or vinegar or strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes, or dried, no raisins, nothing of the grape. All the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made from the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. Now that's very specific, is it not? That's very specific. That's like, today, that would be like eating things gluten-free. Okay? Because a lot was made from the grape during this day and age. A lot. And so that was like, I'm going gluten-free. That's rough, isn't it? All the days that he separated himself from the Lord, he shall come at no dead body, verse 6. Verse 7, he shall not make himself unclean for his father, his mother, his brother, his sister, when they die. So in other words, if he has a family member, even an immediate family member, and they die, he cannot touch them in any way. Or, anyway, become unclean because his family member passed away. He cannot do that because he has taken a vow. All the days of his separation, he is holy unto the Lord. And so, and obviously many other situations that are given concerning the Nazirite and his vow. And then after this vow is finished, then he has to offer offerings to complete this vow situation. Go down to verse 18. And Nazirite shall shave the head of his separation at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, because up to that point, no cutting of the hair. Now he's going to cut all of his hair off. And take the hair of the head of his separation, put it in the fire which is under the sacrifice of the peace offerings. And the priest shall take the sodden shoulder of the ram, one unleavened cake out of the basket, unleavened water, a wafer rather, and shall put them upon the hands of the Nazirite after the hair of his separation is shaven. And the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. This is holy for the priest, with the waved breast and heaved shoulder. And after that the Nazirite may drink wine, because he's finished his vow. Now he can go back to being able to drink grape juice, to eat grapes and raisins, eating things that are made from the vine. All those things he is now able to do. This is the law of the Nazirite who hath vowed, and this offering unto the Lord for separation. Beside that his hand shall get, according to the vow which he vowed. So he must do after the law of the separation. And while we're already here and thinking about this, let's go to Amos. Amos chapter 2. And verse let's look at verse 12. Amos is prophesying against Israel because of their many sins, their rebellion against God. And one part of that rebellion against God is that they disregarded any vow to God. Notice what he says here in Amos 2, verse 12. But ye gave the Nazarites, those who have taken that Nazarite vow, wine to drink. Now, if you took a Nazarite vow, were you to drink wine? Obviously you were not. But yet, those who had taken that vow, they didn't see anything wrong with, as they were communing with them, oh, I know you've taken the vow, but let me offer you wine to drink. They were hardened. They didn't care about a vow to God. They didn't care about the person taking the vow. They just didn't have any regard to this. This person has entered into a holy situation with God. They did not help that situation. And that, among many other reasons, but it's interesting that that is a reason why God destroyed the nation of Israel. We would say the northern kingdom. And part of that reason is because they didn't care anything about the Nazarite vow and keeping that between that individual, that holy individual, and God. And so that also then tells us, here's the reason why God destroyed a nation. How important is it for us to keep our word today? Should we strive our very best to keep our word? You know, I think it's interesting. No, I was not alive when this was the case, by the way. I'm not that old. I'm old, not that old. But I have heard that it was said that when two men said that they were going to do something and they shook hands on it, then it was bound, and that they would actually perform that, whatever that was. Now, that has never been a part of my life. I've never known that, by the way. I've never known that. But apparently that was the case before I was alive. Some of you more senior folks, can you attest to that? Was that true?
I remember that.
Do you remember that? If it was around while I was alive, it was when I was like this high. Because all the days of my life, it was a contract, you know. Now here's the thing, before I get to that. Here's the thing. It's so bad that now, even when you sign things in a contract, if somebody wants to get out of that contract that they have signed, they go to the judge, and who does the judge side with? Do they side with the person who drafted that contract, or do they side with the person who wants to get out of the contract? By many times, let me tell you, they side with the person who wants to get out of the contract. Many times. In other words, that piece of paper doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything. It's tragic. Because we don't care anymore about vows. We don't care anymore about, even in the laws of court, the court of law, we do not care about vows. That's a terrible situation. Dad?
In the 50s, my dad bought automobiles and actually got his mortgage from the bank.
A mortgage with a handshake. No way. That's crazy. That's crazy. Dave?
Even like when you have confrontations with people, when you get it settled, you shake on it. Now shake on it. You know,
Right.
you agree to it's settled and done with.
Mhm.
Done with that.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. I mean, in micro situations, especially hopefully between brethren, you know, we could shake on something and it happened. I think we can trust that. But when dealing with people of the world, no, there's no way. There's no way. And I mean, you feel like dealing with people of the world, you have to have a team of lawyers behind you, you know, that anything would actually get done in your favor anyway. So, any other thoughts or ideas about that? Vows and such? No? Oh, okay, all right. To me, I believe, oh, Sister Linda. Right. That's right. It's better not to make the vow. It is. That's exactly right. And it doesn't need to be something big, you know, even something small. For instance, when I told the other day, I went and visited Sister Mosley over there in the rehab. Sister Mosley, I'm going to come back and I'll see you again. Now, is that a vow? Is that a promise? Yes. Did it take me very long to say it? No. And some people might even think it in passing. But you see, even something like that, I'm going to come back and see you again. That's a vow. That's a promise. Am I obligated to keep that vow? Yes. I am obligated to keep that vow to the best of my ability. Now, let's say she gets moved out of there before I can return there. Okay? Is that a possibility? Well, I mean, obviously then I can't. But I'm going to go see her wherever she gets moved to, so I do keep it in that sense. But when I say I'm going to see you again, even though, what I'm trying to say is that even those little things, those are promises. I need to keep those things. God holds me accountable. Does that change our perspective on what we say to other people? You know, the gravity of what I say. Hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It really should give us pause. Do I really mean this? I think it's a bigger deal than we really, and part of it is our culture. Oh, I'm just going to say something, and then the kids call it ghosting you. Folks, that's not right. That's not right. God's going to hold a lot of people accountable because they do not keep their promises. Sister Linda, and then I get to you, Ricardo. Uh-huh.
On my way out, I met this lady. She was not a Christian. And we got to talking. She told me how long she had been doing that, 5 years. Having a conversation about the rap that I had around my head. And I said, so I really like that rap. And so I told her, I said, the next time I come, I'm going to bring you one. And so yesterday it clicked in my head. Wait a minute. I didn't say when. I told her when I come back out here,
Right.
I would bring her one. So this week, I got to keep that vow.
That's right. That's a good,
About her not being a Christian.
right.
That might encourage her to want to be one.
That's exactly right.
Say, I didn't know that lady really, but she kept her vow.
That's right. And that's a great point too. I really love that.
So I gotta go back and take her little rap.
You take her rap. I love it. Now give us a report. Hey, I took that lady her rap, and we'll help you. We'll help you keep accountable on that. But that's a great example, and it's a beautiful thing. You know, when we're Christians and we keep our promises, that makes an impression. Because most people do not keep their promises. They'll say things just off the cuff and make a promise, and then they don't even think two things about it. But we should be careful about what we say and the promises that we make. Brother Carter?
Are you aware, or has anyone used Lord willing before they say the promise?
Well, you can't say Lord willing. You can say Lord willing, but let me tell you, the Lord is willing for you to keep your promise. the Lord is willing. We shouldn't use the Lord willing in order to get out of a promise. Because the Lord is willing that we keep it. Lord willing, I'm going to come worship. Well, guess what? The Lord is willing that you worship him on the first day of the week. So, but there is a situation where, obviously as human beings, we do not have control of everything. I mean, if I make a promise, and no doubt, all of us, perhaps, I don't know if it's the case or not, but many people have made promises and then died. And they were unable to fulfill that promise. Was the Lord going to hold them accountable for that? Well, the answer is no, because we're human beings. Right? But yeah. So the Lord willing in that situation. Yeah. All right. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12 as we kind of wind down here. And a point that I wanted to make as we look at beginning with verse 4. So we see in the old law that God ordered things and people had a place to be, things to do, specific areas that they were responsible for. Is the Lord's church any different? The answer is no. With the exception of in the camp of Israel, when you were born in a certain family, then you had responsibilities in that family, as we talked about Kohath, for instance. Now, as we are born again and added to the Lord's church, we have responsibilities, but it's because we are in the body. And so we, in a sense, more find out what we need to be doing. Now look, verse 4, chapter 12. Now there are different diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. Different administrations, the same Lord. Different diversities of operations, but it's the same God which worketh all in all. Now I do understand that in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, we're talking about spiritual gifts that are miraculous in nature. I do understand that. And we do not have that anymore. Chapter 13 tells us about those things. However, the principle remains. Look what the Spirit does. Verse 8. For to one is given by the same Spirit the word of wisdom. To another, the word of knowledge. Verse 9. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing. To another, working of miracles. Another, prophecy. Another, discerning of spirits. To another, diverse kinds of tongues and interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh that one and the selfsame Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. So in the first century, as the gospel is being disseminated through the world, obviously they did not have the written word. So what the Spirit did through the laying on of the apostles' hands is he helped the church to expand by miracle. We don't need that today because we have the completed Word of God. However, we do need different roles to be filled. Can everybody be the gospel preacher of the congregation? Can everybody do that? No. And some people would say, oh, well, and women can't do this and that or whatever. Can every man be the gospel preacher of a congregation? No. So that has nothing to do with it. Roles are limited. Can every man be an elder of a congregation? No. Most men do not qualify to be an elder of, in the eldership. That's a role situation. Same with deacons. Same with Bible class teachers. And other situations. So what I have to do is, what is my role in the Lord's church? In the local church? In the church universal? Where do I fit in into this place? And what can I do to benefit the cause of Christ wherever I am? When we look at life, I'm talking about what it is that I want to do as far as work is concerned, where I want to live. All of these things of a temporal nature. That is how I interact with this world as I live in it. What should be my main and first concern? Matthew 6:33. You tell me. What should be my first and main concern?
Serve God.
That's right. How am I going to serve God? Because everything else is secondary. Secondary doesn't mean not important. It means secondary. I first have to say, okay, what's my role in life in serving God? And then as I serve Him, okay, now the rest of my life is laid out. And so you will hear me say frequently, look, this is my role in the church. That's not your role. You're not expected to do that. You're not responsible for doing all the things that I do. But you are responsible to do something. You are responsible for whatever God has for you to do. And further than that, can you just stay in the same place all the time? Or should you grow? We should want to grow in the Lord. And so where, I wasn't able to teach before, hey, now I'm able to teach. Where I wasn't able to serve before, hey, I'm able to serve now. We should be able to grow and be more able to fill different roles in the church as we grow in Him. Oh, well, I really appreciate your kind attention and the great comments this morning. We'll take just a short break at the top of the hour, come back and worship our God together.